Shout out to our sponsors at Iconbet. Open source, decentralized gaming, no deposits, play straight from your wallet. Iconbet, made by the players, for the players. Ion Icon is proudly supported by Icon Nation and the Icon community. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Eye on Icon, the episode where we go around the ecosystem and get you all the latest and greatest news. And with me, as always, is our co-host, Icongrapher. How are you today?
Doing pretty well. How about yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. It was great to not have hard stops and have a good catch-up before the podcast and plan everything out. So,
yeah. Well, it's nice. We always, at least when we have time, we always try to, Fez and I always kind of chat a little bit beforehand and just kind of go back and forth. And, sometimes there's stuff he catches in the ecosystem that I miss, and sometimes I catch stuff that he misses. So it's our chance to kind of individually get caught up and then also plan out the episode as well. So it's always insightful for me. Hopefully it is for you as well. And of course, none of you guys get access to those little secret chats, but we try to share as much as possible on the podcast. So you're not missing too much.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, very valuable. And yes, one day we'll think of something to get that info out there as well. But as you say, we do cover most of it in our conversations as we're giving everyone the news. So, look, let's jump in. First thing is markets. Look, it's good to wake up to some green again. What are your thoughts?
I think last around this time we chatted, Bitcoin is in like the low 50K range, and I think it needed to get over like 52 or 53 to kind of leg up a little bit, which it did. But now we hit the point where Bitcoin starts to run a little bit, and I'm sure everyone who's holding alts basically noticed that your portfolio has basically either been stagnant or even gone down a bit. So that's when things get really stressful for a lot of people, because they see Bitcoin start to run. They feel Bitcoin's having the party and everyone else is getting left behind. But historically speaking, every time this cycle plays out, this little mini cycle, Bitcoin goes up and alts get left behind, and then Bitcoin consolidates a little bit, and then all of a sudden, after a little bit of time, money starts flowing from Bitcoin down the market cap order, and alts start to do pretty well and start to catch up. Usually much more dramatically rise than Bitcoin did. And you'll see, Bitcoin dominance start to fall and stuff like that. So, I think it's just a matter of being a bit patient, letting it kind of play out. Again, you've lost Sats value, but for the most part, dollar values should be fairly stable. Maybe it's gone down a little bit, but again, that's just how it goes. We've seen this play out, 100 bajillion times. And as as the bull market intensifies, the cycle tends to get more intense as well. So just one of those things, you got to let it kind of play out. It's I think it's a sign of a healthy market. Bitcoin's going up, but it's not going up. I feel like earlier in the spring it went up every time it legged up, it went up like $1,000 every like 6 hours or something. So it feels like a much more gradual process, but obviously that's just kind of leaving alts behind. So I would say just kind of be patient with it, let the markets do its thing, and alts, including especially Icon, should have its day fairly soon.
I think,
but again, not financial advice.
Yeah, totally. And look, I was just, while you were talking on the Bitcoin chart, again, ignore my terrible lines, but just looking at where we are right now, we're around 12 to 13% from here to the all-time high that we hit last time. So I didn't realize that. I just put the percentage thing on it. So very interesting. But look, I mean, it's interesting on chain. We keep making these comments. They've been saying, there's a lot of accumulation been happening, especially from whales, things like that. One thing I've noticed this week, that hasn't changed. In fact, if anything, it's like people are tripling down, especially wallets that have a lot of Bitcoin. But one thing they did comment is this week there was, just based on what's been happening with Bitcoin movements, they expected a bit of chop, which has happened. I don't know if we're out of the woods yet. However, every time there's been a bit of a dump, and you can see in some of these candles we've gone from 57,000 all the way down to 53. hilarious. You know what's hilarious about this? In a news article over here in Australia, it was the other day. Bitcoin drops $400. I laughed at that article. I thought that this is making headlines if they actually captured a real drop. Oh, anyway,
Flashback to 2015.
yeah. Well, even just the other day, they said 400, but actually it dropped like 1,500. But anyway, who cares? But
Yeah.
overall, look, it seems we seem to be bouncing back. It seems like on chain is still very bullish, and keeps saying we haven't had that blow off top. I know there's speculation. What if there isn't this that? But overall, if you look at all the charts, and I'm not a trader, but I keep coming back to that icon chart, and you see this line. I don't touch this chart, so every time I show it here, you're looking at the same chart with my terrible lines, and you can see again we've recaptured that trend that has been going on since the 21st of July, around that date when it started. Even though we've dropped off it twice or thrice, we've come back and recaptured that trend, which is a good sign in my eyes. Trend is your friend, but not financial advice. Let's see what happens. If BTC really does go for a run, which people are expecting, I think we'll see a bit of bleeding, as you mentioned. But overall, we know what happens after BTC pops, ETH will pop, alts will pop. It seems to just keep following the tradition. Not financial advice though, so don't hedge your bets on what we're saying. It does sometimes change. BTC pops, alts run, then ETH runs, then BTC goes for another run. So it likes to change things up. But overall, it's still looking good. Okay, I think that's markets. Let's dive into the news. First thing, what have we got?
So a bit of Icon 2.0 news. Obviously, we're in the bit. The vote passed to officially migrate from Icon 1.0 to 2.0. So right now the migration process is underway. Essentially, kind of PREPs essentially moving that data over. And so this is obviously, we talked a lot about migration over the summer. Every time we recorded, it was up 15% or something like that. That was kind of the big migration, the major migration. Whereas this is a bit more from a technical infrastructure standpoint migration. This is the thing that it was kind of the phase one that we've talked about. Brian had a good rundown of it a couple weeks ago. Basically, it takes about 10 days to 2 weeks to get done. And the most recent update we got, which was I'm referencing the Iconist here, which had an article about it. Basically, about 25 million blocks have been transferred so far. It's about 60%. And it says, assuming no technical issues, the mainnet block transfer should be complete by the end of this week or the beginning of next week. So I don't know if that means like Saturday or Sunday or what. But anyway, I would say by the time we're talking next week, assuming this article is correct and no issues pop up, we should be done with that data transfer, which kicks off those other two phases, which are much shorter in nature. I think each of them is like 2 to 3 days or so like that. So, by the end of potentially next week, maybe bleeding into the week after, Icon 2.0 should be ready to go again, assuming no issues or anything like that.
Yeah, look, you're right. I think it's pretty accurate because even in the Discord, these are kind of some of the rates going, percentages that we've completed. Now, from memory, keep in mind this process was meant to take 4 weeks, so or 2 weeks, one of the two. But the way it's tracking is going very well. So fingers crossed. Yes, next week we're already on to the next stage.
So next we'll move on to our kind of regular scheduled balance discussion, just because every week there's several topics to discuss there. I guess first is we got another actually 4 new liquidity pools / trading pairs, all of them involving the METX token, which is Metanix, which is one of the PREPs. This was a token. They operate kind of a interchain infrastructure. They were a PREP where if you staked with them back a few months ago, and I don't know if they may still offer the airdrop of their token today. I can't remember off the top of my head or not, but anyway, their token now has 4 new pairs: BNUSD, SICX, IUSDC, and USDS. So if you want to go, either if you have some Metanix that you want to sell or you have some that you want to buy, or if you want to provide liquidity, you are be able to do that in all four pools. I will say the liquidity right now is fairly low. I think especially in the USD stablecoin pairs. So any significant trade will cause some slippage. It's a little bit tricky because it's not incentivized by balance; it's only incentivized by the trading fees. So if you are providing liquidity, you get a slice of the trading fees. Bit of a chicken and egg problem because there's not a lot of trading because there's a lot of slippage, and if there's not a lot of trading, there's less incentive to provide liquidity. So, I kind of wonder why we added four pools, just because
Thank
it
you.
seems like the liquidity is a little thin. But that being said, if it you can always remove one if something doesn't work out, or I suppose, or consolidate or whatever it might be, or there might be more plans to kind of from from the Metanex team or something like that to beef up that liquidity. Or something like that. So anyway, nonetheless, we have those four options. Nice to see the platform grow, and some nice additions added.
See, it's funny. Ohm and Balanced should have pairings like this across the board. Um, but they've gone and done it, and their pools aren't incentivized, or at the moment, people don't understand the use case for the token yet. And by that, I mean because it hasn't been, brought to the forefront to show, okay, this is what the token and this is what you get from it, etc. But overall, great to see more tokens getting listed. What one thing I did notice, and I have picked up in all the different chats, a lot of people didn't even know they had this token, and obviously when Balance has added it, and when you connect your wallet in the Balance wallet, it actually shows, and they've realized, oh, I got this token. So no, it probably was airdropped to you a long time back. They were airdropping to anyone who voted for their node a while back. So if you didn't add the token manually in your wallet, you probably didn't realize you had it. So if it is popping up, that's why you have it. And one of the probably the only main reasons at the moment to supply liquidity is to get those trading fees in those pools, because there's such small pools. If people actually went to trade, there would be a decent amount of fees going back, and I think a few people have experienced that. They put in a tiny amount and just seen it grow a little bit in value, and were wondering why. But that's probably one of the reasons why. That said, as Icongrapher called out, there's no balance rewards or any extra rewards for providing liquidity, bar the 0.15% trading fee that goes to everyone who provides liquidity in these pools.
Before I forget, a little while back, I did write kind of a deep dive on the project as far as Metanix. So, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So I'll go ahead and kind of try to repost that / promote it a bit, and we can maybe include it in the show notes too, just so if people are totally clueless about what this token is, I think it'll hopefully, it's written a few months ago, so it might be a tad out of date, depending on how the project's developed, but it could help give a bit more information as far as kind of what the token does and what the broader picture is.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I recall you did write about it. That's right. Cool. What's next?
Yeah. So there's it's like feels like every day there's a new proposal being whipped up by Scott for Balanced. So this new one is, he kind of observed that a with the starting with the goal that we'd like to have more total value locked on Balanced, because it's good just on paper stat to have. Helps lure people in, makes the platform look more impressive, but also just, the more liquidity, the better. The more activity you do, it's more reliable if there's more liquidity, both in terms of, just in terms of slippage, in terms of trading fees, all that other good stuff. And so what he observed is basically, there's certain pools that, are more tempting than others for people to provide liquidity. And so there's almost a discount in terms of the way the BALN gets allocated. So I don't know if that made entirely sense, but basically he's pointing out, so let's look at the BALN / BNUSD pool, right? So let's say there's 10 million of liquidity in that pool, and the rewards per day are 10,000 balance, right? So basically for every 1,000 USD of total value is equivalent to one BALN of daily inflation, right? So it's kind of like one if you incentivize with one BALN token in that pool, each one BALN you provide gets about $1,000 worth of liquidity, right? So, and that's, there's, so meanwhile, let's take a look at IUSDC slash BNUSD. There's, 1.5 million of liquidity, and there's 288 BALN rewards. So a lot less BALN. Whereas this equivalent, one BALN can basically get you $5,200 of USD of liquidity, right? And so it's almost like it's the phrase he's using is cheaper liquidity, right? So in the second case, because it's two stable coins, for every one BALN we get about $5,200 of liquidity in the first case, because it's BALN versus BNUSD. For every one BALN we get only 1,000 USD. So basically, because of the way the pool set up with the two stable coins, people are more willing to put money in there because there's not really a permanent loss. They get the trading fees and they get a little bit of BALN, but it's nothing too crazy. Whereas if you boost the BALN being provided, you might be able to get a really good kind of return on investment as far as the amount of liquidity that gets added. So that's basically the kind of the context behind this proposal. And so what it specifically does is it adjusts kind of where the BALN distribution goes. I think the most notable would be that the IUSDC slash BNUSD rate goes from 0.5% to 2%. BALN slash SICX goes from 5% to 10%, and a few other adjustments like that. Half of the numbers staying pretty similar. And he also mentioned that there would be potentially a way to implement it so it's a constant voting, right? So basically, if you hold BALN, you can go in at any given point and kind of vote how much percentage you think each pool should get, and obviously, it weights everyone. So if everyone thinks, oh yeah, I think we should bump up the IUSDC slash BNUSD balance rewards by like 1%. If that's what the voters kind of want on a given day, it'll tweak that. So it'll kind of be fluid. It'll be kind of very much more responsive, kind of what the market's dictating and things like that. So this is something that other protocols do. I think Curve is probably a pretty good example, where it's like all the time it's fluctuating based on the incentives are very much fluctuating based on what the voters, the token holders, think is best for the protocol. So both. That's something that's kind of more obviously difficult to implement, but this kind of proposal sparks that idea. But it also obviously on its own and I don't think it's up yet officially, hasn't been proposed. But he said probably by the time you're listening to this, it might be up or very, very close to being up as an official proposal on Balanced.
Yep. Look, I think I wasn't fully following. Your explanation made a lot more sense. I get it being more nimble. Yeah, I I don't have a view on this personally, but I still haven't quite followed it. I do understand we need flexibility in where we allocate, and we can't just keep having new proposals come up every time we want to reallocate the distribution process, which is fair enough. So, and I get the concept of if we can move it around a little bit, just incentivizing a tiny bit could pull in a ton of liquidity. I get that. So it seems like that's the goal. So yeah, I don't see. I find it interesting though, if we have levers for people to put votes on where it should go, what will happen with the worker token percentage, as you were talking, because I've got the screen up and you can see. So what will stop people from going, well, actually, let's incentivize the pools and pull 5-10% off the worker tokens, unless they exclusively block that from changing.
You're saying that for the weight of the worker tokens to maybe like.
Oh, I'm not saying like look. Honestly, I think the 20% is well deserved for all the work the team does.
Right.
I mean more that if part of what Scott has said is they want to make it more so that people can, live essentially, right? So you can kind of push, okay, we need to change this, and people just quickly vote. And yes, that happens. So who's to say if that happens, people won't actually try to actively push for the worker percentages to get distributed in other areas?
Oh, well, it's the is that part of the allocation on the proposal? Because it's
It
got, oh, I
is.
see, yeah, the
Yeah.
workers. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be interesting in terms of if it's it might be, maybe it'll only be fluid on terms of the actual pools. Like I think I'm almost positive that's how Curve does it, where the there's certain inflation that goes towards certain pockets, but the inflation that goes toward the LPs, that's the stuff that kind of gets voted on with the levers and everything like that. So yeah, I think and even messing with the Dow fund or the reserve or things like that. Part of it is like the voters have voted in from a static standpoint, a proposal to increase the Dow fund or whatever. So I think they would potentially remain consistent with that. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it might potentially make more sense to kind of lock those in, and then have okay, 50% of balance will go to LPs. You guys figure out
Mm.
where that 50% gets allocated or something like that.
Yeah.
So obviously we're ways away from certainly the implementation of that, but also even a proposal on how that would work. But yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, so next up we have what have we got? So
So we had we yeah there was an issue with the BIP 8 implementation, which was the rebalancing threshold down to 2.5%. I'm referencing a tweet here mentioning from Balanced official Twitter, but basically they implemented it's resolved by now. So if you notice, if you were aware of that issue, noticed any issues as far as BIP8 was concerned, they've been resolved. So it's a bit of old news, but at least wanted to kind of clarify that, just make you aware of it if it was something that might have been lingering. And then the final topic is another discussion, basically talking about lowering of origination fees. So, the loans are good because they help, mint BNUSD. And so there's a proposal basically to bump down the origination fee, which would theoretically, increase the incentive for people to be willing to take out loans. So obviously the upside would be, more loans getting taken out. The downside would be that there'd be less revenue being brought into Balanced. Now, I'm not sure. I can't remember if it says on the stats page. I imagine it does. But how much the loan origination fees account for the overall fees of the protocol. And I don't anticipate it's a whole lot, just because they're also one-off. And people aren't switching on and off loans every day, whereas people are probably making trades every single day. So I don't think it's a huge deal from a revenue standpoint, but it could be more significantly positive from just making sure that the protocol is functioning as it should, especially as it relates to BNUSD.
Yeah, look, this is interesting. I've been a bit vocal about the whole rebalancing. I have my views on it. I completely get it. I think when I reflect on it, the rebalancing, I think I was thinking about this last night, if we had 50,000 unique users all on here taking, and a lot of BNUSD was in the market and things like that, that rotation process would then take a lot longer to go around. But we don't have that many users. Now, this is just my assessment of it. So we're seeing rebalancing happen quite frequently. But this particular one that kicked off with Brian, it's a great thread to read. I actually enjoyed it because when it gets to Scott's portion, he actually shares some of his thoughts. And one of the reasons, he calls out is... people are getting rebalanced, and then obviously you see it, and we're all going and literally rebuying our stacks that are getting sold off because ultimately majority of us have gone and taken out a loan to probably leverage and buy more ICX. So if it's getting sold off, it's kind of defeating the point of what we've been doing all these years, holding ICX. And he's actually talked a bit to it, where he's mentioned that, it's kind of counteracting the rebalancing effect. So as soon as that's happening, it's counteracting. We're going buying it. It's counteracting the rebalancing effect, and then rebalancing keeps happening. That's why we're kind of seeing it rebalance the same way consistently, regardless if price is going up or down, because this is kind of having kind of a loop effect. So. And one of the fundamental reasons this is also happening is there is no particular use case for BNUSD. There's no actual need for BNUSD from other areas. So until we get Ohm and a few other pieces adopting BNUSD, this should start to have a better impact on the entire rebalancing mechanisms and stuff like that. So there's a lot at play here, and he gives a real good comparison with synthetics and things, how those pieces work, because ultimately, like, people are getting caught up. A lot of people balance. Yes, there's an AMM, great, but to me, balance is all about minting assets, right? And this is, to me, 80% of it. The DEX is just a bonus. That's great, but we need to be able to mint assets, and once that we can't just have, oh well, because this is what's happening. People don't want to get rebalanced, so they're not taking their ICX as collateral to put it up there. And I'm willing to bet beat ETH, for example. I'm not going to put my ETH stash at risk of every day coming and seeing a little bit of it has been sold. Maybe it will work better with ETH because you can kind of go into the open market and buy. But mentally, psychologically, I'm not going to do it. And I'm willing to bet a large percentage sit in that bucket as well. So we need to get this right, and BNUSD is crucial. The minting process is crucial to balance success in my eyes. So, but overall, the point of this is the fees is not what is driving the DAO fund, and really a lot of other protocols that have this synthetic version, the way balance is designed, actually mint the stablecoin for free without charging any fee. So yeah, definitely. I've kind of gone on my own tangent there, but I read this morning and felt a bit better. It was good to see Scott actually reason and understand. Yes, I get the rebalancing. We understand the impacts it has, and this is why we're suggesting some of these solutions and why we're proposing dropping those fees and what impacts it will potentially have to the rebalancing mechanism and the peg in general. So I'll actually make sure I put this in the notes, this links, so that people can, instead of going through the forums, quickly click on the show notes and go to it and read up. Yeah, that's all I had to say. I can go for.
So moving on to Ohm. Now, for those who didn't notice, and it looks like there's a good chunk of us who didn't, because the vote is only about 27% of voters have cast a vote. There's basically two proposals on the table. They relate to the what we talked about last week. Basically, with the ICE airdrop happening, it gets tricky to allocate it for Ohm, because you have people both, you could both supply and borrow SICX. So it's almost like, as we kind of mentioned, it's kind of how finance works, is you're kind of creating new money with existing money, which is great for, creating a robust economic system, especially in DeFi. It's not so great when you're trying to figure out a one-to-one airdrop. So Ohm has been thinking a lot about this, and engaging with their community a whole lot in terms of figuring out a solution. So there's two proposals up right now, and kind of there's two folded into one. So one of them is basically disabling the borrowing feature for SICX, and also removing the rewards for SICX borrow, and moving them to the supply side. So that alone, obviously people won't be able to take out SICX and try to game the airdrop by kind of artificially inflating the amount of ICX they hold by taking out a loan, because when you take out a loan, you're borrowing it from someone else. So either the person borrowing it would get it, or the person supplying would get it, but both can't, even though they both quote unquote own X number of ICX or whatever it is. So that's the one proposal. The other proposal is to increase the borrow rates to 120% on SICX for 120% fixed interest rates per year. So at first you might say, well, why do we need to do that if you can't even borrow it? the issue is there's people who already have SAICX borrowed, and so by increasing the rate, it nudges them towards returning it, and kind of making it a bit cleaner. It's for, again, in terms of that airdrop. And obviously 120%, nobody really wants to pay that. So ideally that would work. And the other part of it that got mentioned was essentially, there could be people who want to kind of almost speculate on the ICE drop. And so they could borrow, they could put up some ICX as collateral, borrow the SICX, and then get the airdrop, and then just not bother repaying, and sell the airdrop, and then just not bother to ever repay that loan back or something like that. So this helps kind of, incentivize them not to do that, just because the amount owed will, go up by a pretty significant amount. So, I think between these two proposals together, that it'll be all the incentives to obviously disabling it entirely will make it so you can't borrow, but also it'll nudge all those people who currently have SICX outstanding to return it. So ideally, there's kind of a worst case scenario where people might have borrowed SICX, maybe bought something else with it, and then that other asset might have fallen in price, so they're kind of underwater a little bit, and now all of a sudden their interest is going to go up. So obviously it's going to get tough for them. I don't know how many people that is. I think a lot of the people who were borrowing SICX were probably just borrowing it and sitting on it, and just collecting their own rewards from that. So anyway, I think this is, again, these have been thought out for a lot, discussed with the community a lot, and as of last check, they were passing by pretty overwhelming amounts. Again, the voter participation isn't as high as we've seen in balanced. And there might be, a number of reasons for that. I think part of it is, they might just not be aware that these votes went up. So hopefully if you're listening and you haven't voted yet, you will do so.
I think that's the ultimate takeaway. You can't ignore this. Even if you don't vote, if you have borrowed ICX, you won't be able to soon. And you can't keep that loan running. Well, you can, but you're going to start paying ridiculous amount of interest. So it's in your best interest to close the loan there. So just make sure you're doing that. And we all know why this is, to make sure that the drop for ICE is fair. Now, I know people may have views, say this or that. Ultimately, I will say this quite bluntly. We're getting it for free, people. So if there's a couple of rules that we need everyone to get along with, and at least it's been discussed openly with the community, so be it. What person can say that a new chain's launched and you're getting a 1-to-1 airdrop for that other chain? No one. We're in a great position. So frankly, even last week, I think I wasn't too concerned about this, and I'm not. It's quite crystal clear. I think before this is one of the conversations we had, Iconographer, and I was like, I don't get why they're charging more interest, and then I just hadn't read the forum properly, and as I read it out loud to you, I was like, oh, duh, obviously, because people will have loans and we want to make sure they pay them down. That's all. So great one. I think I know DK, I know Arush, who's been heading up the monks and the DeFi Academy and stuff. They were really engaging the community about this. They've even held a big session for an hour where they had quite a lot of the monks on, along with the community, really breaking this down to make sure everyone understood why these proposals have been put forward. So kudos to them. Well done on engaging the entire community to get this across. Just before we go on, Iconographer, Scott has just tweeted, so we've been spending a bit of time on Balanced and we talked about a few of the proposals. He's actually put up right now a new proposal, use Balance and SICX and BNUSD in the DAO fund to mitigate rebalancing. So obviously, this has just happened as we're recording the show.
Breaking. We need the breaking news siren going in the back.
That's right. Oh, damn it. I don't have a button. But yeah, I can quickly pull it up, but then we'll have to assess it. So we haven't broken it down yet. But this is the one you probably want to read. This was also an interesting side discussion that was happening in the forums. So he's rehashed his thoughts and put up different options. It's quite interesting, and I want to deep dive into it probably next episode. But if you're listening to this, definitely something to check out as well. I think these particular posts, when Scott does it, it's great because he's not just tackling how to fix something, he's presenting quite a lot of options that have been presented in different conversations in the forums, and he's collated them all into one like super post, and then given his thoughts and rationales around what is feasible, what's possible, what potentially some of the impacts would be. So, yep, make sure you get across that one. Back to the news. So we've covered Ohm. What else have we got?
So moving on to the NFT front, probably the biggest news was the Gangstabet pre-sale has started, currently underway. I think there's 10 days left, and it has sold. And when I last checked, it's probably up by now, but 3,388 out of 5,555 have been sold. So what is that, like 60%, something like that? And so, pretty good momentum initially. I thought maybe this would be, sell out a bit quicker, but it's still, it's still early days in the pre-sale. I still haven't bought mine yet, so I've been procrastinating on that. I was glad to not see them sell out kind of immediately, so I get a chance at them. So looking forward to minting some of those pretty soon. And on a similar note, they are Craft has partnered with Gangstabet in order to accommodate the volume from the pre-sale into CFT generation. So normally, CFT would be generated and allocated based on your buying and selling on the network on Craft itself, but they've been able to integrate the pre-sale, which is on the Gangstabet.io website, into those token rewards. So certainly very nice. And on a similar note, well, I guess do you have any thoughts on the Gangstabet pre-sale?
Oh, you know how I feel. I'm pro Gangstabet. I'm honestly, yes, it's great it's not sold out, but I'm kind of pissed it's not sold out as well, because it's probably one of those projects. I've told you, there's been, it's a CPS funded first, a lot of thought and has been put into it, and it's an evolution of that NFT, gamification of the NFT. It's not just pixel punk, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but it's not just some thing that you buy and hold. It's got an entire thing to it, and what I'm referring to, Galactic Punks, for example, that's on the Luna ecosystem, that sold out in minutes, and it's got a floor price of something ridiculous, and the only thing about it is it's got rarity, right? So of the 10,000 minted, as soon as it gets minted, that's where then the rarity factors come into play, all the different things to see, is yours how rare is it, or percentile based. But that's it. The minting process, and that's that. Over here, this is an evolution of that, where as we finish the mint, you realize what is kind of exclusive and really rare based on how much has been minted off it. But then the tokenomics come into play, and you have up to 9 years to keep evolving your NFT, which is not happening in any other ecosystem. So look, on that note, so the fact that it's not sold out, been kind of pissed, and in the background been raging away, and we've seen now the HX57 program is coming out with a range of bounties all around Gangstabet, so that's great to see. So we want to get more people noticing that this is what's happening in the icon system, writing articles, and this range of bounties is actually going to be quite cool. Like, not just what is Gangstabet and this, it's like creating stories around the characters and stuff, so people can kind of run with it and create something imaginative, which I hope, again, I come back to, please take the time. There's free money being given out for these bounties, so it's great to see the foundation kind of step in and realize that this is something cool and unique. And I hope these bounties keep coming, not just for Gangstabet, but on that note, to anything in the icon ecosystem. It's not just what the foundation looks or has their hand in. It's these HX57 bounties are to support everything and anything in the icon ecosystem, and this is proof. Gangstabet is that first step where there's huge potential, and we want to get more eyes on it. So let's get the content and community creating and reward them for it, and at the same time, hopefully, bring in new people buying these awesome NFTs.
So speaking on partnership, Craft announced another one with Picxals. Hopefully,
Picxals, yeah.
I'm close enough. Yeah. Basically, randomized NFT creatures that start off as eggs, hatch into their baby forms, and then are grown into their adult forms that will be used in a future NFT gaming platform. So this is another one where the pre-sale will be calculated toward the CFT token allocation. So I don't know if we have a release date on this one yet. I think it's getting closer. I don't know if you know anything, Fez.
I don't. Yeah, no. I know
But yeah,
it's
certainly something.
close.
Certainly, I know it's being worked on by, I believe it's Geodude,
Yeah.
and so obviously very, a team that's been building on Icon for a long time and been active in the community. So certainly another one to keep an eye on. And then last week we mentioned that Craft had come out with a roadmap. We hadn't yet had a chance to kind of dive into it a little bit, so we promised we would talk about it this week. And so here we are. And so this is, it's partly related to CFT, but also partly related to the actual, Craft platform, the Craft platform itself. And so, they have a little graphic here, which is pretty nifty. I don't know if you have it up on your screen, Fez,
Yeah.
from the Medium article.
Oh, just
But basically, the first three kind of phases were, the liquidity mining, which was the CFT token, the LP staking, which you could do on balance, and also released on balance as well. So those three things are handled. What's next is basically creating member tiers. So basically, if to be a bronze, you don't need any CFT. Silver is 50,000, gold is 100,000, platinum is 250, and diamond is 500,000. And so the various member levels will kind of part of it's kind of status thing. I think there's also going to provide different levels of staking rewards you can receive based on your level. I think they provide different benefits in terms of early access to certain NFT drops and things like that. So I haven't paid too much close attention to other NFT platforms, so I don't know how ubiquitous this is in terms of the status thing, but certainly something kind of cool, especially when you consider a lot of the NFTs are all kind of their own little status niche to a certain extent. They'll also work on fee sharing. So basically, if you have CFT tokens, you get a share of the fees that are collected by the platform. They're also working on the governance kind of protocols. So basically, kind of similar to how you can vote on Ohm and Balanced. That'll be implemented as well. So that'll be certainly cool as far as voting on, what should be built next, all that other good stuff. And then more down the road, multi-currency. So I assume that means, ability to transact in, maybe BNUSD or other stable coins or other tokens, discounted NFTs, and then future drops as well. So I'm sure we'll get more details on those in the future. But in the meantime, it looks like for essentially October and November, we'll get the user tiers, the fee sharing, and the governance. So nice to see some things kind of coming in pretty soon here, and we'll further. I think it'll start building some more kind of intrinsic value for the CFT token. So right now it's kind of hard to value. So that'll be nice once those things start to come along.
Yeah, it's good. I think great summary, Icongrapher. It's great. I actually was asking for a roadmap, and this is a bit. I was keen to see if they were going to implement some of those other metrics that you see on OpenSea and other NFT platforms around stats and things like that. I
think they are, and I don't know if that's I don't know if they rise to. I think they've already made some gradual improvements. Like I think if you look at a collection, they implemented this a little while back, but now it shows what the floor price is and things like that. So I think there's a little improvements they're going to be making that won't necessarily rise to the level of a governance vote or something like that. So I think those things are all a bit lower thresholds to be able to just implement and provide general feature upgrades and things like that. So I think it's just I think they're working on that, but I think the bigger stuff would come through the governance proposals.
Cool. No, that's great. What have we got next?
So kind of moving on to some a few miscellaneous topics. There's a proposal for on the CPS for a basically a support for a hackathon, and TJ did a pretty lengthy thread on why kind of how a project like that fits into the whole kind of vision for CPS and Icon, primarily as it relates to kind of getting more developers on board and things like that. So we're not going to go through the entire thing, but certainly, it's certainly something I would encourage you to read just to get some good insight and some good thoughts, and to get through. But a bit more understanding of why these hackathons can provide value for the ecosystem. They don't make an immediate splash. It's not like the hackathon starts and the price is going to go up of a token or something like that. But in terms of cultivating talent over the long term for the ecosystem and for ensuring long term value, they're certainly important. Again, they operate kind of under the radar, but these things, a lot of the under the radar stuff is what builds value over the long term.
Yeah, and I have it up, and so this is some of the stuff we've been asking for, right? So we know Icon DAO have done this where they've in universities now there is a particular a hackathon happening, and look at it, like even when you scroll you can see the level of detail in the proposal, talking through all the different categories, the prizes, and why they've kind of gone, actually we want to get in here, and it's good exposure for Icon, etc. I will call this out, like this is something I have gone on rants about. So this, when I talk about CPS proposals, I often say, you as Iconists can go in and see what your P-reps are doing. So here's a proposal. We all know we want to get builders. You know what? It's asking for 18,000 ICX. I'm sorry. I don't care if they ask for 100,000, as long as, it was going to be a big hackathon that attract a lot of devs to it. I would just kind of scan to make sure it was worthy, but I would be thinking, yes, we need something like this. And you can see P-reps have started to prove it, and when they don't, they put in comments. I encourage Iconists, always review this, and if you're voting for some of these P-reps that are rejecting what you think is meant to be good for Icon, and you're voting for them, this is where we have the power to have our say. So and we, actually, I don't particularly care. Brian even commented on this on Twitter that we understand the value of the hackathon but feel the budget is high for one-time event. Please reassess. It's I'm sorry, it's not like there are 100 of these getting put up every time, So anyway, that rant aside, I'm very excited about this. It was a great surprise to see this on, and hopefully it passes and we see a few things come out of this event.
So another thing to highlight is there are about, I don't know if it closed yet or not, but basically there's the bounty on the kind of technical specification upgrades for Icon 2.0. This is through the hx57.io bounty program that Fez had been alluding to. So I can't remember if it closed exactly already by the time you're listening to this, but nonetheless, deadline October 14th. So pretty soon here, and then winners announced will be a week later. So if you haven't had a chance to submit for this and can slip in an entry, feel free to do so. And then otherwise, be sure to keep paying attention, because there's going to be other opportunities moving forward. As Fez mentioned, there's some Gangstabet stuff now, and so this kind of first wave, I think, is pretty much wrapped up. So looking forward to what other opportunities will be out there for some Iconists to make some money and promote Icon throughout the Icon ecosystem, but also throughout the crypto ecosystem as well.
Yeah, and look, one thing I want to call out here with this, in the Ion Icon chat, if you'll have suggestions on what you want to see some bounties about, please start sharing ideas. Like a lot of these, they're not. It is engaging community members and finding out. Most of the time, it's me hounding the team, going, "I think these bounties. Let's try and do this. But if you have something you want to see, you think it would be great or it would be great to a way to lure other content creators and things into the Icon ecosystem to explore, and you have an idea around it, please share it, and we can take it straight to the foundation and go, here's some suggestions that have come through the community. Let's see what we can implement as part of the program. So really looking for everyone to come in and share some ideas here. Very open to it. Quite frankly, in my eyes, I remember when doing this, I envisioned these bounties, we would have 20, 30 submissions, based on the amount of money being offered. So I'm really keen to make sure that does happen, and that's where we end up. So very open and wanting to hear from the community some thoughts on how to make that possible. But yep. What else have we got?
another note, ICX has been, or I guess Icon has been updated 160 times in the last month as far as GitHub is concerned. So, this is one of those metrics that I don't always, I think sometimes take with a grain of salt. It was a way that people, especially during the bear market, would kind of try to evaluate what projects had the most credibility or whatever. They look at the number of commits that have been made to a given GitHub. This wasn't always a perfect metric, just because a commit itself isn't necessarily representative of the amount of work done. You could do 5 things. It takes 5 minutes and make a commit, and it says one commit, or you can spend 5 days working on stuff and use that as a commit. And also too, people wouldn't always look at the right GitHub, or there'd be multiple GitHubs for a given project or whatever it might be. Nonetheless, the Icon GitHub always been pretty active, but just want to highlight, I was even looking at it today, and just on a lot of different categories, a lot of different updates happening. I imagine a lot of it's geared toward the Icon 2.0 stuff, but nonetheless, it's just a nice little bit of positive news that thought it'd be nice to highlight and just show how much is kind of really being worked on behind the scenes and under the hood and all that other good stuff, and both in terms of Icon 2.0 and BTP and everything else. And then on a final note, we got a little bit of a sneak peek on some graphics as far as the Supernode Racing is concerned, which is the first, I'll say first, but it is of what we know to be the first, I guess, game NFT platform, DApp, whatever you want to classify it as, to be built on ice. So that'll be a nice little kind of kickoff project. Again, there might be other stuff being built that we're not aware of, but that's one that has been announced. Basically, an NFT game where you get a car, racing car, and then are able to kind of build up your stats and compete with it and all that other good stuff. So fun little project, again, being worked on by Geodude and kind of the other Iconbet team members, I think. So cool little sneak peek and something to look forward to.
Yep, I didn't have it up. I quickly loaded it up. But we got a first glimpse of some new cars. They look great. Excited about this one. Excited in general, just to hear everything about ice. Look, but again, excited. Let's Icon 2.0, and then as soon as that's done, Icongrapher, and we're there and moving forward with Icon 2.0, then we'll shift attention to ice and go, okay, where's ice at? When's the date?
We got to shift attention to BTP too. So
of course,
we'll have a lot of attention to go around. That's for sure.
That's right. I think that's about it, isn't it, Icongrapher? That's all the news.
Yeah, for the most part, another, I would say, kind of, we don't have any difficulty finding news to share. That's certainly the case, and that's certainly a good thing. I think by this time next week we'll have some more substantive news on Icon 2.0. We'll probably start to see, a little bit over the horizon as far as when the actual completion date will be. We're working on some stuff that I don't know we want to announce yet, just because it's not fully cemented yet as far as Ion Icon is concerned, just to do a little bit of fun little Icon 2.0 release activities and things like that. So stay tuned if that comes down the pipeline, but I guess wanted to tease that a little bit.
Yeah, and look, we just this week as well dropped an interview with Vibravid, the guys, the team, Alex and Ted, who's his technical person who tackles all the building, and they talked about the proposal that didn't get voted through, the Icon Dex. So they came on the show and talked through what the Dex is, and what was really great about that conversation, Ted, he's the person who actually does the technical assessment and basically maps everything out, and then also has the ability to recruit the skill set they need to build. And we spend a bit of time towards the later half of the interview talking about that and what he brings to the picture, and how he's actually recruiting devs who haven't worked in the blockchain space but have those skill sets, the React skill sets and things that you need to be a dev. And he uses his knowledge to onboard them and show them, and then they start building for various projects. So I found this fascinating, and this was part of the conversation. Indirectly, it's a way of onboarding new devs, something that is a constant struggle in our space. Why? Because all of them are already utilized. Anyone who knows blockchain is already working in the space, because they know there's a lot of money to be made in this space, and so that's where half these hackathons and things like that come about, because we're trying to get new blood into the space. And it was great to have this conversation where these guys have that ability to do that and are actually doing this. But the first half we do spend talking about the decks and how it's different and what the plans are, and we actually talk through all the different phases in their proposal and what it means. I didn't realize a lot of it, so I got them to break it down during the interview. So I learned a lot. I really do suggest giving it a listen if you haven't already. It will open everyone's eyes as to what they were trying to build and get funding for in CPS. So that and this time when they go for funding, obviously they're going to be a little more strategic in terms of, it's been on the forums. There's been plenty of time to get feedback from all the P-reps and incorporate it. But overall, I think if you know more about the project, then you feel more comfortable at what you're looking at in the CPS proposal system as well. Enough about that. Overall, it was a great interview, though. Lots of good insights on how what they're doing and how they recruit new people into to build. I enjoyed that component. Last but not least, remember, not financial advice. Please do your own research. It's just two of us sharing our views, as I always call out, and we've called out through the interview. So please keep that in mind. Last but not least, share, like, subscribe. I cannot ask or request this enough. Please even on I believe now on Spotify and stuff you can rate. We would appreciate the community's help with this. The more we get, hopefully if someone is kind of looking at Icon with all the news, BTP, they stumble on an Icon, boom, think about it. Listen to one podcast, they're in the ecosystem for life. What a pitch. But yeah, please, we need your help with that, and I really appreciate everyone. And that's it, Iconographer. That's it. Let's close this out. Thank you, everyone.
See ya.